Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Awareness Podcast. I'm your host, Jackie Greggs, and this is the Come Empty segment of this Awareness Podcast. And we're so glad that you're here today. I am so excited, super excited, to be interviewing a wonderful person, someone that I have had the pleasure of listening to for many years, actually, um, and someone who I think that his music is conscious and heart touching and just a beautiful, beautiful expression of God. And I'm so glad to be talking to her. Welcome, Ginger Coyle.
Thank you for having me, Jackie, and the feeling is so mutual.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to give people a little bit of an idea about you, but I would love for you to fill in the gap. So I know that you're a seasoned, and as people will come to find out later on, a seasoned songwriter and a singer with a beautiful, beautiful voice. The first time I heard your voice, and by the way, for those of you all who don't know, I met Ginger at the Center for Conscious Living in New Jersey. And the first time I heard your voice, I was like, "Oh my God, who is this? Who is this?" So, because that's the effect it had on me. And but Ginger, you've been, your career has spanned over 20 something years. You write your own songs, you play, um,
Yes.
and one of the things I love about your music is that it's socially conscious, right? And I would even go so far as to say that it's the kind of music that helps to open up, your consciousness, and it speaks to who we truly are. Fill in the gaps? What am I missing? What else do people need to know about you?
Well, thank you. Thank you. I remember the first time I heard you as well, and I was like, whoo, I need to know her. And I felt like I knew you. I really
Mhm.
did because CCL, everybody just feels like family. But
Absolutely.
my journey as a songwriter, yes, I've been songwriting since I was preteen, and a lot of that was romantic, ego, all the way up until I entered really motherhood, and that sort of started to change the way that I wrote. I was thinking about everything differently because I had a child coming into the world, and I didn't want her to see me as anything but, somebody who was a helper in this world and somebody who was trying to facilitate change. So yeah, my songwriting hasn't always been conscious. I think that motherhood helped kind of like awaken that within me, and then I started to naturally find my way on a spiritual path. And Norman Taylor is the person who, when I was going through a really hard time, when my daughter was about 4 years old,
Mhm.
just as a friend, we were playing a New Year's Eve gig together, and we were driving to it and from it because it was like 2 hours away. And on the way home, he was like, with everything you're going through, I want to invite you to play with me somewhere really special. And, he's like, I think you're going to love it. The people are going to love your music. And he's like, and we only have to do one song by yourself, and then I'll come over and we can practice some other stuff. But he told me what it was. And he's like, it's on a Sunday. I'm like, wait a minute, Norm. Are you trying to get me to sing at church? Because I, had my reservations, and even though that's where I grew up singing, I just kind of had let a lot of those pieces go with Catholicism. And he was like, no, it's not church. It is like church. We gather like church, but it's
Mhm.
our own thing. So I kept an open mind. He came over and we started to actually go over some secular songs that were very new thought,
Mhm.
spirit related. And I was like, okay, I think I can jive with this. And I showed up and I played. And I was just that day changed my whole course because I realized the power of my words. Uh, for the words that I was speaking, the words I was singing, the songs that I was singing when I was doing 4 hour long cover gigs, what songs were chosen for those sets, how were they affecting people. And I started rewriting some songs that I had already written to change the language. that was like the first exercise. And then once I revamped a couple and I made them more positive, and it was only by flipping a couple little things and it changed the whole vibe of a song. I was like, this is fun. This is really, this is what I needed, you know? And I wrote Rise Up that week, which is
Mm.
kind of like a reggae track that I have on my new record coming out, but the single's already out. And Maya Angelou, her and Still I Rise is the second verse of that song, one of the stanzas. But yeah, I mean it's been a long journey for me, and I'm so to find myself where I am. I finally feel as an artist I've come into my purpose,
Mm.
and it's what I was trying to find for so many years.
That is beautiful. And thank you for sharing that because, just doing a little bit of uh, reading about you, you know, um, so you also, right, you had more of an experience, I would say, or maybe you had an experience about, trying to make it in the music industry, right? And trying to do things that we think are going to get us where we want to go. What was that experience like for you? You, uh, had you were on couple of labels. What was that like for you? And then did you notice a point where it's like, I don't think this is it?
Yeah. I think, you know, starting out I romanticized the whole thing. Um that's the only word I can kind of come up with to describe it, because I'm a teenager. I love all of these female artists that I'm hearing and they inspire me, but it was like me trying to be like all of them, you know, kind of like miming and vocally. Um, so yeah, and I was obsessed with like Tori Amos, Sarah McLachlan, those types of people. I would straddle a bench at a piano like Tori Amos and slink across it, and it's like, you know, I go to see an A&R rep who thinks they're seeing a 14 or 15-year-old girl, and they're expecting Britney Spears, and they're like, what do we do with this? You know, first of all, you know, she's not thin enough. You know, let's put some makeup on her. You know, what's her image? What's our demographic? You know, it's like once you go into that world, you're kind of giving yourself to the idea of other people.
Mm,
And my family was very supportive of me, especially my father, and he was the one who saw when I was writing songs at 12. He took me to Sam Ash music store
mm,
and said, Giuseppe, he's like, you know, your mom said you're writing songs. They were divorced at this point, and I was writing songs in third person as if I were my mother in
mm.
the divorce. You know, there's no way a 12-year-old could be writing all these these romantic songs. And I was like, okay, we're probably not going to want to hear this because it's sort of about you guys. But I played him a couple songs, and I think that day we must have left with a keyboard,
Wow.
and he was just trying to get me gigs, coffee houses, bars, restaurants, things like that. And he'd pick me up from school, and I'd go play a gig. I think that my dad really did his best to put a solid effort into getting me in front of other people when it came to letting me play out, showing me how to gig. But the A&R side, you know, it's just we always run into all these issues with people wanting me to be more teeny bopper, wanting to dumb down what I was doing. And I was really stubborn that, you know, I was not of that world. I did not want to be of that world. And, uh, you know, had a couple high hopes, letdowns, you know, through my teen years. And then when I was 19, 18, I graduated high school. My mom was like, you have 1 year to prove that this is like a serious thing. Otherwise, going to college, you know, you have a year. My dad was more willing than my mom. They were kind of meeting halfway there. And within that year, I got out of high school and then was one day homesick from running a coffee shop. And I saw just daytime television, the Wayne Brady show. They were doing a singing contest. And I was like, I don't really have any much to lose here by sending in a VHS tape. Let's like, you know, it was 2003.
Hmm.
Uh, so I just sat on the edge of my shower with a guitar and played one of my songs, sent it in, and then a week later, my phone was ringing and
Wow.
they wanted me to come and be on the show. So I went to LA and I was out there for a few weeks working with a vocal coach, choreographer, and it was kind of like the same thing with that singing contest. This is like pre-Idol
Hmm.
too. This is like right
Mm.
before Idol started. So I was the only one showing up with an instrument and they were treating everybody else like with a choreographer and I'm like, well, what am I going to do with a choreographer? But actually they told me how to work with a camera,
Hmm.
so there were plus sides to that, and I opened up my mind to all of those things I was like feeling weird about, and ended up winning that singing competition, and it was a deal with Hollywood Records.
Hmm.
But my issue with Hollywood Records at that time was their biggest artist was Hilary Duff, and she was 18 or 19 on a Disney show, and she was coming out with music that was just like teeny bopper fluffy rock weird stuff. Just not my alley, and that's what was working for this company at the time with their young person, and that's the direction that they were trying to push me in. And I went to New York and worked with Phil Galdston. He wrote Save the Best for Last for Vanessa Williams.
Oh yeah.
But it was taking my songs, dissecting them, rewriting them with this writer. But it just the whole time it always felt like it was never really, who do you want to be?
Hmm.
What do you want to say? I wasn't really treated that way. It was treated more like an obligation. So I came back from that experience, walking away from it actually because it didn't feel right. And ultimately uh found myself with a friend from high school. He was working at the Hit Factory in New York City, and I had a bunch of acoustic things that I'd written, and I was just bent on going into that studio. Like he would close out an Alicia Keys session or Rob Tobbins session, and then he'd call me. I'd get on a train, and while he still had the studio until he left, we'd go in and record songs.
Hmm.
And so I was doing that, and then in the meantime he was working on this like rock hip hop project, and just goofing around. I'm writing hooks for it and thinking that he's going to get somebody else to
Hmm.
sing these parts I'm writing. And ultimately, I end up finding myself in this hip hop rock band, like just singing hooks. Like
uh,
I was so stubborn, I wouldn't do what the previous thing was. But then I find myself in this rock hip hop pop project where I'm like in booty shorts on a mic,
oh
dancing around
my.
like a fool, and end up showcasing for BMI in Atlanta, judged by like Usher and CeeLo and you
Uh-huh.
name it. They were there judging it. We won this BMI showcase. And then we're working with Jazzy Faye and Dallas Austin in Atlanta. And I'm suddenly signed to Murder Inc. Records.
Oh wow.
Okay. Recording in a place called the Crack House. And my
No.
family was so proud. No, I think they were just more confused. And it
Yeah,
was just
right.
rides that I found myself on, and there were many lessons. There were so many lessons. But yeah, I mean, we toured with Third Eye Blind and rode through the Midwest one summer. We ended up having our budget stolen by Irv Gotti and Murder
Oh
Inc.
wow.
Yeah, so we lost our distribution with Universal. It all happened like dominoes falling, and
Mm.
then they were trying to separate me from the rest of the guys in the group,
Yeah.
and I was contractually bound to go to whatever meeting I was going to be sold off at, basically.
Wow.
Uh, and I was very upset about that, and it turned out that I went for a run, make sure you're working out. We got this meeting, like
Mhm.
all the pressure for image. And I didn't want to be there anyway. And I threw up when I was running one day. I'm like,
Mhm.
this isn't right.
Yeah.
Turned out I was pregnant with my daughter, Georgia,
Mhm.
and my phone never rang again.
Wow.
I thought I went and my pregnancy kind of turned into like depression
Mm-hmm.
because of the way that was treated. And I didn't play music. I was like, in my mind, I'm like, it's over. My life's over.
Uh-huh.
This is where I was at 25, and I worked and pushed so hard to get somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately getting nowhere, but they were all in the wrong directions.
Right, right, right.
And I couldn't see at the time. I was too
Mm-hmm.
blinded by what everybody was thinking, and the noise around me sucked me in.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't see that my daughter was actually the blessing, that she actually
Wow.
saved me from being sold off to Capitol Records and
Mm-hmm.
being a Kesha with God knows what happening to me as a young woman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I was being pushed in directions that I shouldn't have been going.
Right.
So I say Georgia saved me in lots of ways. And she
Wow.
made me reevaluate everything that I wanted to be as an artist, who is
Mm-hmm.
now becoming a mother. And what do I want to say? How do I want her to see me?
That's
So that changed the course, and
mm-hmm.
that made me go independent because I, for years, had so much music that I was putting all this energy into,
Mm-hmm.
and it never saw the light of day. It's
Right.
easy for them to just shelf it and write off that money as a loss,
Yeah.
you
But you know
know?
what? Can I just say, you made me think that, when we think about music, especially today, conscious music, if you want to call it that, music that has consciousness in it.
Yeah.
I was listening to some this morning and I'm going, wow, so much out here, right? And
Mhm.
unlike, thank goodness for, the the music platforms have their goods and their bads, right? Like, for the artists,
Very oversaturated. We'll say
yeah.
that.
But then also, it gives you this ability to hear somebody that if they're not a signed big time artist, you would not. You're not,
Yeah.
you probably wouldn't. But yet you have this opportunity now that people can, if they make it into that down, whoever similar music, like, oh, I've never even heard this person before. That's the
Yes.
beautiful thing about it. But where I was going with it with you was that haven't had those experiences. But, the kind of music that can be created today has a lot more freedom, right? It doesn't have
Yeah.
to fit into this box that somebody says, and I would even call it the worthy box, right? Like it didn't have
Mm.
to fit into the worthy box. Like, oh, if it doesn't meet these standards, then it's not worthy of somebody hearing.
Mhm.
And so, did you feel like eventually, when you went independent, and as you started to get on this spiritual journey, how did all of that start to meet up eventually, and then start to be what you write about and what we hear you sing about?
So wait, the question is, I'm sorry, repeat
So
what exactly?
when you went independent,
Yeah.
right now you became an independent artist. How did that meet up with your spiritual path? Where now the things that I hear you sing about and write about, the oneness, the truth of
Yeah.
who we are, how did that all kind of come together?
Well, like I said, the Norman Taylor, blues artist friend,
Yep.
took me to a Sunday. We sang together on a Sunday at Center for Conscious Living,
Mm-hmm.
and like that moment, that just opened it up. The gates blew open, and I was like, "This is." I know how to write music, but this is a different type of alchemy to write in this language where
Mm,
you have a purpose to pull people to a higher place, where before it was just woe is me, romantic ego, not all sad, but it was all very self-serving, and people need that too. Of course, who doesn't love a great love song? But changing from the egoic love into the universal love didn't happen for me until 2014. And I find so much more, I get so much more back from it.
mm,
I really do. And it's not just in the places of gathering. It's on a level where I could be opening up for Michael McDonald, and I get his audience too,
mm-hmm,
because they're like fusing it with my sound that I already know, like the soul music. It was just like the piece that was missing
Yeah.
didn't come in until 2014. And
Hmm.
then it's just been like, if I'm writing something, I really like to take it to that universal place where you could hear it as a love song to somebody, but it's more about you and whatever your idea of God
Hmm.
is,
It's
you know.
deeper. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, speaking of that, so musical influences, because there's one song that we're going to share with the audience that I love, and I love jazz, right?
Mm.
At one point in time, I called myself a jazz vocalist. I don't anymore, even though I still do jazz.
Because it's
Um,
such a hard title to hold next to
yeah,
the people who have studied it and do it well.
yeah,
You know, when people call me jazzy, I'm like, I would not even last in that world next to an Abby Lincoln.
yeah, yeah.
You know, it's not even right to, yeah, I love it's such a compliment, but I
Hmm.
can't
Yeah.
claim that.
Well, it was the only music I was doing at one point was just jazz, and but getting back to the song that we're going to share, it's very jazzy, right? Like, well, sorry, it's jazz. I mean,
Yeah, it is.
there's a jazz feel to that song, obviously. But when you grew up, though, Ginger, who were some of the musical influence, or maybe some of the genres of music that influenced you as an artist?
Well, Billie Holiday was huge. Billy Joel was huge. Marvin Gaye,
Yeah.
uh, Abby Lincoln, I love. But growing up, Fiona Apple, Tori Amos, people who played piano and sang, Carole King. Oh my God, Carole King. Um, you know, it's always been a lot of people who play and sing always caught my attention.
Hmm.
I always gravitated towards Sting and the Police. I loved reggae, Bob Marley. You know, it's pulling from a lot. I pull from a lot of places.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, with my inspiration.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, speaking of that song, I want to. Why don't you tee it up for us in terms of like, I want to share with people "Only Love," and is this off of the new project?
Yes.
Yes. Which and tell us a little bit about the project. So when is the full project going to be released? If you could give us
In
a little bit.
July is
Okay.
what where we're at right now with it. It and I started recording this when I was pregnant with my son in 2015.
Okay.
Is when we started tracking. So it's been a lot of like stop and go because of situations within my life. And COVID, you know, it's just everything kind of piled up, but it's finally in a state where we're just mixing and mastering. So this summer it will be out. Only Love is available, Rise Up is available, and The Mother will be available next week. That's a song pertaining to Mother Earth.
Hmm.
But the idea was really stemmed from my time. I started singing regularly with Norman at CCL, and I wanted to create an album called Higher, like to raise a
Hmm.
vibration, your personal planetary vibration that you're bringing individually, because that adds up to a bigger picture, as we all know. So it was kind of just like all of the songs that I had written, songs that I had was starting to write, that I rewrote lyrics and changed them all to be within this language. They're what make up Higher Frequency. Higher Frequency, the song itself, came from foundations class. Actually, that was my end of the term project, and it's really, this is like definitely a new thought record in
Hmm.
a lot of ways.
Beautiful. So we're going to play "Only Love" and just invite folks to listen to the
I
lyrics.
started writing Only Love in 2016,
Okay.
on election day.
Wow. What was there?
Uh,
Is there a story behind that?
Not really. I just was sitting at the piano, and the riff, the da 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 da. I just started
Mhm.
playing that, and I just felt like with all of the civil rights things still happening, we had a new president that I was scared about.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to write a song about human compassion. That's really the core of it is compassion, and only love is going to heal these wounds is the last line of the song. And that's really, we have so many wounds that we've had for so long, and I felt like we were still in the same place. We hadn't
Mm-hmm.
made it that far. We should be further along, was kind of what I was feeling.
Okay.
So just love. Love is my religion. The earth's my church. That's like another little chant that happens in there.
Excellent. All right, let me tee this up because this is exciting. So I'm gonna mute my mic, and you can mute your mic, and that way we can make sure we don't have any
Also,
feedback.
a bar of soap, a bar of soap that said "all one, all none"
Mm-hmm.
was in my shower, and it was a Dr. Bronner's bar of soap.
Uh-huh.
And if you've ever read those labels on the Dr. Bronner soap, I mean,
Yes.
it goes all about the moral ABCs and love. And I started singing, like, once I had the riff, "We all are one, oh, we're all none." That was from a bar soap. So just another little
Inspiration
tidbit.
can come
When
from
you hear it, you're gonna be
anywhere.
like, "Oh, okay." All right,
Inspiration can come from a bar of soap, people. Just let it
anywhere.
come.
Yes.
All
All
right,
right, I'm
let
gonna
me
mute.
let me tune it up here and get it together.
I can no longer be silent. I can't witness this violence, 'cause it aches my soul and it breaks my heart in two. I can't look at the TV, 'cause it feels like a time machine set to 1962. 50 years gone by, man. I think it's time we go. Your life matters to me, mine should matter to you.
Yes.
Well,
Yes, 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 yes.
thank you for sharing it.
Oh man, that's absolutely, let me tell you. It's so hard not to move because I felt like I could hear a little bit of an African beat in there. I was just like,
Yes, well, my
oh,
drummer
I,
specifically
was,
went for
I couldn't help it.
Afro-Cuban. Yes,
Yes.
Afro-Cuban beat.
Yeah, I couldn't help myself.
I know, and it's like so. Yeah, that's why I didn't want to play it solo this morning because of that rhythm that just kind of like
Yeah.
chugs it along, and the horns. It's
Oh,
yeah, it's the recording is just we had so much fun making that.
man, that's awesome. And I just love the message in it, only love, we all are one. And just that invitation, I think the song is giving us to, hey, you know what? We've been doing this stuff a long time, y'all. Come on.
Yeah,
It's time
and I was
to
real
stand up.
tired, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Being
was beautiful.
silent, you know, and a lot of it, you know, part of it was me channeling, I'm not a person of color.
Hmm.
What would my voice be if I was? Like, what can I say here for anybody? You
Hmm.
know, like, because it goes, it's so much beyond that. It has to, it has to be a oneness with everybody. We have so many struggles, but I wanted to just be a voice for anyone's perspective. You know, it's not just coming from me personally. I wanted it to anybody, any person of any color, any ethnicity to feel this, you know. And I think everybody's tired.
Hmm.
I really do.
That's
And
such a,
being silent isn't the answer, you know. So
yeah.
that's why the first line is I can no longer be silent. I have to write a song about this. It's aching me to
Mm,
see one more thing on the news, to hear one more racist thing come out somebody's mouth, you know, like willful ignorance. I just, I was sick,
yeah.
you know?
Well, wow. That I'm telling you, that is such a beautiful song, inspirational. The first time I heard it when I came on you, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I need to crank this up some more.
Yeah, thank you.
It's wonderful, Ginger, and
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for
Mm,
following that inner guidance of your own to create that music that allows that message to come through you to be shared with us. I'm so grateful for that. Um,
I'm grateful for you.
I often ask people when they come on this podcast, because the name of the podcast is called "I'm Empty," and I wonder, how do you come empty to the things that you do? It could be writing lyrics, it could be creating songs, it could be how you live your life. Well, instead of like coming to things with all of our opinions and I know what to do and I know this, and that, be able to move all of that stuff out of the way so that you can actually hear the voice of inner wisdom. How do you do
Mhm.
that?
Wow. I love that concept too. I'm empty. I feel like that alone is what I try to practice it every day. I try to come empty to every day because I've just learned that showing up with expectations in any way, you know, even if it's just getting my children out of bed and making them breakfast and getting them on the school bus, you know, if I have expectations, it can ruin a whole morning, you know, and or even their whole day if we're not flowing and I'm not being open. So I feel like that's just been something that I've worked on for a while now is just losing my expectations. But when it comes to family, you know, just everyday stuff, but also with music as well. Um, I trust the universe. And I think that that's coming empty to every day is just trusting that it's all going, you know, you're going to make your right moves or whatever, but letting go of any expectations to your day and letting it all unfold instead of wanting to control every single aspect. You're going to find resistance everywhere you turn, you know,
Mhm.
if that's how
Absolutely,
you're doing
definitely.
it. So I love that concept, but I feel like it's my almost a spiritual practice of just getting through my days is just coming empty, showing up empty to everything.
Yeah, me too. Me too. A conscious decision every day. So we're about at time for our discussion, what would be that one takeaway, Ginger, you would love to leave with this audience? What would you want them to know
Mm. About myself or about
about whatever comes to your mind right now? Boom. Here's what I would love to leave with folks.
I want them to know that they don't need to try um hard to be their authentic selves,
Mm,
because that was something that took me a really long time to figure out. Like when somebody ever asks me if you could go back 10 years, 20 years and talk to the 14-year-old little Ginger, I would say just do you. Just why you don't, I think if I had because the sooner I got to that place of authenticity and shedding anybody else's idea and even my own idea of myself, because I had ideas of myself for so long that were molded by a lot of other people along the way. It's funny, through the conditioning, everything we pick up, uh things that we really shouldn't be holding. And I think that the sooner I was able to kind of shed that and be like, no, this is what I like and this is what I sound like. I'm not going to take the vibrato out of my voice because you want me to sound like some sex kitten in that song or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like there were
oh
so many
yeah.
things that like I was told to be along the way, and I had to like strip down the whole idea of myself to really get down to what it is that I am.
Mm,
So, and I think that that can pertain to anybody in any facet of whatever they're doing in their lives. Like, just authenticity is what we should all strive for,
mhm. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing.
because there's freedom in it.
Oh my gosh. Because isn't it a lot of work to try to be something you're not,
Ugh,
right? It's so much work and it's so much energy. I mean, I so agree with you because I know, even
it's
on my own
exhausting.
musical journey, it's like, oh, if I could just belt that note out like Aretha Franklin, it would be great. But you know
Right?
what? Aretha's already doing that. What are you doing, right?
Exactly. And it's like, I try to do stuff and I sound like I'm screaming and I'm not the
Mhm.
best riffer, but I can sing, like once I embrace my own voice and what I
Yeah,
can do with my voice that maybe somebody who's a riffer can't do with theirs, or the way that
right.
I can channel spirit and express
Hmm.
where maybe they're riffing and they sound like they're soulful, but you actually feel very
Yeah,
little.
right, right,
Like I
right.
think that there's something in just like honing in on what it is that your gifts are.
Mm.
Of course, try to always try to learn and expand. That's what I'm always trying to do, but I'm just never trying to force something that isn't natural for me,
And
because it
that
doesn't
was
come off. At the end of the day, that
right.
translates to like, oh, she's trying so hard right now.
Exactly. And it does it doesn't come off as authentic. And the thing is, I think in our culture of America, and maybe in other places, I can only speak to this one. It's just, you kind of pick up this message that, to kind of reproduce what you see, right? And as opposed to, and you don't know until you do, um, to ask Holy Spirit or to ask inner guidance or to ask God, hey, I have something here. Can you tell me how to use it? Because I don't know, right? I don't really know how to use this thing. I
Yeah,
appreciate it if you give me a little help, right?
yeah,
But that came it sounds like for you, for me, it came later on, right?
yeah,
Where I finally stopped and said, what about this voice I have? What do you want me to do with this? Right?
yeah,
Because I spent a lot of time studying the greats and
yeah.
mimicking the greats.
And I think
But
it's cool to do that, and you take little pieces from
yes,
them,
it's how you learn, right?
that align with you. You take those little pieces and you, okay, I'm going to put that in my bag,
Yeah, right,
and
right,
maybe not the whole thing, but I like that and I'm going to take that,
right, right.
So and I feel like that's what really being a true artist is. It's like, of course we're all inspired by
Hmm.
other people, but it's like to mimic somebody completely
Yeah,
is not the way. I even
yeah.
tell some, voice students that I have, these kids come in and they want to sing exactly like Adele or
Hmm.
Mariah or whatever, and it's like, okay, well, let's start with what we have here,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
And I really like, that's one of the main things that I try to work on with students is confidence
Hmm.
within themselves, and embracing what their voice is, and just
Right,
working, you know, like trying to get their idea, like me and all my big ideas of what I thought I wanted to be and who I could be and this and that. It's like, no, let's just, like, if I had just started with myself and focused on
right.
myself, I probably would have gotten a lot further along quicker. It took the long way. So I'm
Yeah,
trying to help these kids really just love themselves, ultimately
exactly.
love themselves, love their own voice, so that they can work with it and
Absolutely.
figure out what their gifts are.
Exactly. Because with that, and that's a beautiful message too. I wish I had you as a teacher.
I wish
If
I
I
had
was that
me
little
as a
girl,
teacher
if I
too.
was that little girl, like, yeah, because at the end of the day, it's like, you have to have some space for God to be able to show you your
Mm,
voice, right?
mm,
Show you what it can do as you with your voice, right? And
yeah.
the fact that you're working with other young people that way, that's a beautiful thing. They don't even know how good of a teacher you are yet. You just wait till they grow up.
uh
You wait, and
I
they'll be
didn't
like,
even
yeah, I
know
didn't
that
do
if I could teach. I didn't know if I could teach, but then when the job fell into my lap, I was like, well, of course I can, but I'm not going to like be a typical voice teacher. Like I really want to like help these kids understand like loving themselves, because my voice teacher
absolutely.
was great, but I didn't have confidence and I didn't love myself, and I thought that I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't good enough. There were all these
All that
things,
stuff, yeah.
and
I
I
mean,
just like, that's like one of the main things is just tapping into that as a piece of the lesson
yeah,
is
that's
like
beautiful.
a really vital part to it.
Well, that's beautiful, and thank you. So I just we're wrapping up now, and the last thing I wanted to share was, so we have three songs, and you can tell me when they're coming. So we have Only Love, Rise Up, and The Mother. Those are coming up soon in terms of being released. What are their due dates?
Rise Up is already out.
Okay.
Only Love is already out.
Yep.
Um, and The Mother should be available within the next 2 weeks online on
Okay.
Spotify. So I would
Right.
say, mid May that's going to be available, and then the record in July.
Beautiful. So the whole piece will be ready in July, right?
Yes.
So in the interim, people, you can find Ginger's music on Spotify. You can look it up on YouTube. It's on streaming platforms, and you'll be in for such a treat. Ginger, thank you.
Thank you for having me. And it really is an honor, and it's cool to do this with you because we know each other from the community, but to be able to just sit down and jive with you, music and
Absolutely,
stuff, has just been a real treat.
absolutely. And listen, who knows? This could be the makings of something even bigger. An opportunity to make some music together. Who
I
knows?
would
You're right.
love that.
Yes.
Absolutely love that. We
Beautiful.
should.
Thank
We
you,
should
Ginger.
write something.
Hey, let's do it. That's
Hey.
my invitation. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.